Hello and welcome everyone to the Tech Sharmit podcast. Today I'm here with another special guest, Feite Kraay, who is one of the most respected senior sales leader of the community and known for his deep experience in big data, digital commerce and infrastructure solutions. Not only this, he is also one of the well-known IBM champion who is consistently contributing for the IBM community. So, in this episode, we are going to talk about his sales leadership journey and his experience as an IBM champion. But before we jump into the conversation, I would like to thank Fateh for joining us in this episode. And now I request you to please initiate the discussion by telling us something about yourself.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Yes, I've been in and around the IBM community for quite a long time. I've got about a 35-year history in the IT industry here in Canada. And I see sort of that journey being sort of in multiple phases, if you will. So I've always managed to kind of grab onto some aspect of technology and run with that for a while and then move on to something else. So, when I started in the mid 80s as a co-op student and then a full-time employee at IBM, it was OS2 was the big thing back then, if anybody remembers that. So I was an instructor and teaching OS2 programming, software development, that kind of stuff. Through a series of not quite coincidences, but interesting events, I ended up in the e-commerce world, and Webster Commerce was sort of the next big thing that I attached onto, and I became the sales leader in Canada for IBM's e-commerce efforts. Moved into the channel at that point as well, and continued my sales efforts there. And after I'd done that for close to 2 decades, moved into distribution, and most recently in a role with one of the big four consulting firms, where I see two big things driving the IT industry now. I think that it's after 35 years, there's never been a more exciting time to be in this industry, because now AI, of course, is a big thing, but quantum computing also are is the two major things that are driving the IT industry right now.
Yes.
And I think both are very, very exciting, and it's a great time to be in this industry.
Okay. So thanks for the introduction, and now we would love to hear more about your journey. But before we start with that journey part, I would like to ask one question related to the programming language. Like, what was your first programming language that you started teaching, or maybe the first programming that you learned in your educational time?
Oh well, back in high school, we my rural school shared a digital PDP-8 from the Digital Equipment Corporation, which no longer exists. Massive mini computers that's about the size of a refrigerator,
Okay.
and we programmed in BASIC on that. So that was my very first introduction to computer programming, and kind of went from there. As I moved through university, Pascal as a mathematical programming language was the big thing, and then as I got into IBM and in the OS2 world, it was C and then C++. So I kind of
Okay.
moved from procedural to object-oriented programming back in those days. And so those were the major languages that I worked with.
Okay. And as you mentioned, like now two things are mainly driving the IT sector, which is one is AI and artificial intelligence mainly. So at this moment, like if you would like to suggest any particular programming language or maybe anything that you would recommend to those freshers or the newcomers who just wanted to make their career in the IT industry now. So what would be those two things?
If you want to make your career in the IT industry now, I'm not sure I would focus on programming languages. I mean, programming languages are
Okay.
a tool, and they change. And we've gone from C and C++ to Java to Python to JavaScript and all kinds of other things. And if you're a professional in this industry and you want to pursue a career in coding and programming, then you will learn a programming language like a carpenter learns a tool to work with, and
Yes.
that's what I would say. Focus on the big picture, focus on the trends. Where are things going? And how are you using the technology, and how are you shaping the technology, and how are you, using it for good? I've been thinking a lot lately about governance, and I think governance is something that AI is coming into now. Governance is something that on the quantum side, we're able to sort of start thinking about it now before we go into full scale deployment.
Hmm.
And I think that should be something people should keep in mind is a governance perspective around how do I use these amazing technologies ethically and for good and for the betterment of society.
Okay, all right. Yeah, this is one of the best advice I have ever heard, because everyone somewhere is focusing on the programming language, but that is not the right thing, right? Because this is something that we can learn by the time. Like if let's say if currently the pace is going towards the Python, so we can learn the Python, right? But the main thing is other like there are other areas. For example, communication skills is very important to be in a particular role of the IT industries. So these are the things that really helps apart from those programming skills.
Yes, exactly. I think those are the long-term skills that will keep you going in this
Yes,
career for decades.
yes. Okay, so yeah, let's talk a bit about your journey towards the sales leadership. So can you tell us like how was your journey towards sales leadership, and what initially sparked your interest in the field of digital commerce, data, and other solutions?
Uh, yeah, so e-commerce was kind of beginning to come into its own in the late 90s and early 2000s, and we had the first dot-com bust and an interesting career move. I made my move into sales for e-commerce right when that dot-com bust around 2000, 2001 was happening, when, pets.com failed and all these the business models weren't sustainable. So I think there was a lesson learned there that, to move into sales, you need to understand and be able to demonstrate business value. It's not just the hot shiny new thing. It's is it applicable and does it really drive value for the business, and can you actually show a return from that? So my interest in moving into sales kind of came from, first of all, understanding technically how the product worked and really getting to understand its strengths and weaknesses, and where it was good and how it could be applied. And then really the nuts and bolts of sales is that being able to express the value in the client's terms, being able to express for the client, understand the client's needs, map your solution to their needs, and be able to demonstrate that at the end of the day they will get value for it. If you can do that, then sales almost becomes easy. I say almost; it's never easy, but that's the key to success.
Okay. And like with over 3 decades of experience in the Canadian IT industry, how have you seen the tech landscape evolve throughout the time? And what key trends do you see shaping the future of this industry?
So I think that there's been a number of different trends, but some common themes that go through that. So, when you've been around long enough, everything old is new again in a way. So, PCs and then client server was kind of the dominant architecture in the 80s and early 90s, and everybody thought that was going to replace the mainframe. That didn't happen. We consolidated back to the mainframe and then moved to cloud as sort of the delivery model for a lot of business services. But I think the theme that goes commonly through all of that is consolidation and reusability of assets, right? So I mentioned C and C++ were some of my early programming languages. C++ was one of the first ones where, as object-oriented programming, we learned how to reuse code in better and more efficient ways. And everything since then is just more ways of reusing code, data, and other assets, standardizing and consolidating it, maintaining it in one place, and then being able to deploy it to different business purposes. That's really what goes on in the industry, and that's what cloud is the latest manifestation of that. Going forward, I've mentioned AI and quantum. Those are kind of the two areas that are the most exciting. And they both tie into cloud. I think cloud is the way you're going to access certainly quantum services, and a lot of AI kind of delivery is going to come that way as well. It'll be pervasive in everything, but cloud and large server consolidation is still where things are going to move forward.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk a bit about your experience as a partner. Like you have worked as a leader in partnerships,
Mhm.
alliance, and ecosystem in Canada for a long time. So, what are some of the common or the most exciting innovations or projects you have been involved with throughout your journey? Like any of the project which you think, yes, this is one of the most exciting project for you.
There's been a number of different things, very, very different types of things that I've been able to do in the ecosystem and partnerships area, and it's pretty much always been in partnership with IBM. So when I left IBM, I worked for a couple of different IBM business partners. And then I was working for one of the large Big Four consulting firms as the IBM Alliance Director. I would say, I mean, I live in Toronto in Ontario, and one of the positions I had, I was running the e-commerce business at Tangential, one of IBM's business partners here in Toronto. And we got the contract from the Ontario provincial government for a very interesting project.
Okay.
Alcohol sales in Ontario are managed and essentially owned by the provincial government. So the provincial government runs its own retail operation called the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. We won the contract to provide distribution of alcohol sales to grocery stores and convenience stores across the province as well. So that essentially is meant setting up a B2B infrastructure for a whole bunch of new players in the industry to be able to place orders, track orders, get invoiced, and make payments and all of that kind of stuff. So we set up, based on Webster Commerce and our own EDI solution, a B2B network to manage all of that. And we started that, about 10 years ago or so, and it's still running today and still expanding today. So that was a very exciting and interesting project to work on. More recently, when I was at the consulting firm for the last few years, they began to develop an interest in quantum. So getting them onto the IBM quantum network and beginning to do some work in some quantum inspired optimization scenarios, porting those over to the IBM hardware and seeing how they worked, and really getting some work done on actual quantum hardware supplied by IBM as we were part of that quantum network. That was also a very exciting piece of work. So two very, very different
Yes.
experiences, but both very exciting.
Okay, so you have explored almost various types of domains throughout your journey. And if I talk about particular roles, then you have held various roles like sales, management, and executive roles in your career. So, what leadership quality do you think are essential for success in diverse roles as you are having, and how have you cultivated these qualities throughout your journey?
Yeah, leadership is quite a responsibility and not to be taken lightly. So if you
Yes.
move into a management or executive role, you have to approach it in a spirit of humility um, and um, it's always a learning journey. So I think as a leader, you always have to be the first to admit that you don't have all the answers, but you can act as a guide and as an experienced guide to help mentor and to help develop the team that works with you and help them find the answers. So it's not about giving the answers; it's about finding the answers together and fostering that spirit of collaboration and collective learning as your team. I think that's the way you can succeed as a leader, and you can really earn the confidence and the respect of the people that you are leading.
Okay, and how you manage tough situation, like if something is not as expected and something goes beyond our expectation sometime. So how you deal such challenges, I would say, or the scenarios where the things are not in our control.
Yeah, it just comes down to an honest communication strategy. You have to as soon as you recognize that there's a problem, get in front of it right away. Have an honest conversation with the client or the person on your team, or
Okay.
whatever the situation is, and don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, but also to be asked the hard questions,
Yes.
and take responsibility for it. And when clients recognize that you made an honest mistake, or something went wrong that was outside of your control, but you're coming forward in a spirit of collaboration to solve the problem, they respect that, and then you can work together and find a solution.
Okay. All right. And let's talk bit about EHM board. So, like you have recently joined the EHM board, lending your business expertise to support the Toronto's population. So, what specific areas are you most excited? Are you most excited to contribute to, and how do you envision making the difference through your work?
Yes, EHM is Evangel Hall Mission. It's a nonprofit agency working in downtown Toronto. We provide subsidized and affordable housing and social services to the vulnerable population of the city. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I joined the board of directors a little over 3 years ago, and I've been treasurer for the last 2 years. So It's a wonderful organization to be part of, and I've been very, very lucky in my career, and I believe that we're all lucky to be where we're at in our careers.
Yes.
And as part of recognizing that fortune that we have, I think the onus is upon us to also give back in a way to the community. And so EHM and being on the board of EHM is one way that I can give back to the community and share the fortune that I've had in my career. As treasurer, my responsibility is to keep the organization on a solid fiscal foundation. So we are a nonprofit, but we provide a lot of very desperately needed services to the community in the city. And we need to do so from a position of financial strength. So making sure that our fundraising and that our expenses and everything is managed properly, that we can, continue to grow and to provide more and more services over the long term. We are looking at a number of expansion opportunities, potentially merging with other agencies, potentially adding more space to our existing buildings, and potentially even building new buildings outright. So we are, embarking on growth strategies in all three of those areas. And that's one of the very exciting things too, because as we grow, we can just scale up and we can be more effective in serving the population.
Okay. And let's say if someone, some individual wants to contribute to this organization, or they also want to be a part of this organization in order to provide social activities, provide and do social activities. So what are, like, is there any specific procedure they are supposed to follow in order to join this firm?
Yeah, we're happy to have organizations and individuals volunteer and assist us. I would say go to our website and you can register on our website and be part of the communication that we send out. And then you can
Okay.
contact us from the website and we can see where you're going to be a best fit in helping with the organization.
Okay. So through website itself, like
Yes,
if someone is interested to be a part of this organization, they can directly reach out through the website.
absolutely.
Okay, and let's, because I know that it's not that easy to work for such a organization who are helping many other people. So, what do you see as the biggest challenges and the opportunity facing organizations like EHM in supporting the city's population, particularly in the light of ongoing social and economic changes?
Yes, well, we've just come through one of the most major social and economic changes in history, almost with the COVID-19 crisis,
Pandemic, yeah.
and so we managed our way through that. It required some major effort on the part of the management, and I salute the executive director and her team and having managed the crisis as well as they did. But demand for our services increased dramatically during COVID. But the nice thing was that our funding increased as well because people
Okay.
were and governments and institutions were much more interested in giving to organizations like us during that time. And so we got an increase in funding, we had an increase in demand, we managed our way through the COVID crisis quite well. Post-COVID, I think, is now becoming a challenge because demand hasn't really dropped as much,
Mm-hmm.
especially in our drop-in center where people come in for a meal or a shower or just to get some services or even spiritual counseling, whatever. Demand at the drop-in center is still very, very high. Demand for services is high, but funding post-COVID is beginning to tail off. So,
Yeah.
maintaining our presence in the community and our visibility in the community so that we can keep the same level of funding going to provide services to the increased demand. And we've just gone through a serious inflationary period, so our costs of operation, procuring large amounts of food for supplying meals to people who come in, those costs have gone up, and the ongoing challenge is to maintain our funding model to be able to absorb those costs and continue to deliver our services. The opportunity, as I mentioned, we have great opportunities to expand and to realize economies of scale and to be able to deliver more services more effectively as we expand our operation.
Okay, and what approach you are following in order to communicate with the local communities? Because we all need the local community support as well to run such type of initiatives or social activities, especially. So, are you doing any kind of awareness program, or maybe any program to spread the awareness of this the initiative of this organization?
Yes, absolutely. One of our major sponsors is the Presbyterian Church in Canada. So we work with church groups across the country
Okay.
to make sure that they know that we exist and that we're providing services in the community. We have a very dedicated team of grant writers who apply for grants and funding from various agencies and foundations and so forth. So we get the word out organically that way quite a bit. And we've been around for probably the better part of a century, and people know who Evangel Hall is, and they know where we are and what we do. So we um, we are already quite visible, but we continue to maintain that promotion. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, Feite, like looking back on your journey from your early days at the University of Waterloo to your current roles, what has been the most rewarding aspect of your career and the community involvement?
Yeah, I think over all these years, these decades, it's always been a journey of learning. And
Yes.
one of the motto that I kind of keep in my mind as I progress through life is ABC. I call that always be curious. So that attitude of curiosity and that journey of learning is what kind of sustained me through my career journey. So it's always thinking about what it is I'm working on, how does it work, how can it be better, how does it fit with other things. Those are the questions that the curious questions that you should be asking and finding answers to always. And then that kind of moves on to the next thing and the next thing, and it's just been a continuous learning journey, which has been absolutely rewarding.
Okay. Now I think it's time to talk bit about another part of your life which is related to running and marathon. So like you began running in 2009 as a part of Father's Day gift, which led to a 5K clinic. So could you please tell us bit about your journey, like how actually it got started, what was it all about, like as we know that it's sometime one day you got a opportunity as a Father's Day gift, so just throw some light on this, like what it is all about.
Yes, I mean, up until then, most of my life I had not been a particularly athletic person. Um,
Hmm.
but I had run occasionally here and there, and it was enjoyable when I did it, but I wasn't terribly serious about it. And then, yes, in 2009, my children were quite young, and my wife, as a Father's Day gift, bought me an entry to this clinic run by one of the local running stores of learning how to run 5K and you know, and become a better runner as a result. So I signed up and I did that clinic, and I found that running was a really very intrinsically rewarding activity, and the fitness benefits became immediately apparent. I started losing weight and just feeling better about myself. So I moved from there to then doing the 10K clinic, and then I started training on my own, and I started running half marathons. And about 2 years later, I ran my first marathon. So and 13 marathons later, I'm still doing that. So it's been again a great journey of both fitness and my own mental health. Part of why my wife bought me that was she thought that for me going for runs might be some good me time to be,
Yes.
as opposed to dedicating all my time to my work and family and all of that kind of stuff. And it's been good. The private time that I get when I'm on a run and the mental health as well as the physical health that comes with it has been again absolutely a very rewarding part of my life, and hopefully I can continue doing that for decades to come.
Yes. And during research, like we found that you often run through the Midtown Toronto around the Mount Pleasant Cemetery. So I think this is one of your favorite spot also. So what makes the Mount Pleasant Cemetery makes your happy place?
Yes, I do call it my happy place. It is a wonderful place to run in. Um, it's Mount Pleasant Cemetery is about a 200-acre green space in the middle of downtown Toronto. So it's a beautiful, beautiful park. Old growth trees and flower beds and gardens and beautiful paths to go through. Um, and so, number one, there's a very practical aspect. It's a safe place to run. There's no traffic. I don't have to worry about cars cutting me off or things like that happening.
Hmm.
And in the winters, it's very regularly cleared of snow and ice, and so the paths are clear and easy to run on year round. So it's just practically a very good place to go. But it's also because it's such a beautiful natural spot in the city. It's just a peaceful place, and it just calms me and grounds me and makes me feel more at peace when I'm running in there. I was just there this morning actually for a short run, and again, it just made me happy to be there.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's take the last question of this podcast. And now I would like to ask the question like which colleague or maybe the peer has made your work life more fun and helped you to grow at the same time? So any maybe mentor or any colleague that makes your work more interesting.
Yes, it's a very interesting question, and there's a number of people that come to mind when I think of sort of who's had positive influences on my life and my career over time. And I think back to actually to secondary school back in the 80s, and in both 11th grade and my final year of high school, my math teacher was a gentleman by the name of John Hoy, and I don't know if he's still around in Kemptville, Ontario, but I was never a great math student up until I encountered him, and um, the way he was able to teach math turned me on to math, and I ended up going to the University of Waterloo to get a degree in mathematics. Ended up at IBM and launched on the career that I've had. So I would say I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for him having taught me math and getting me interested in that, and the rest is history, as they say. So that's one place to start. I would say my last co-op term at IBM, I transitioned into a full-time job, and this was in the OS2 education group. So the manager of that group, Brian Sherman, really he took a chance on me, right? He took me as a co-op student into a group where there's generally fairly senior people doing education and training, and made me part of that team. And I was doing education and training as a peer with those guys who are quite a bit senior to me. So he took a chance on me. I succeeded with that, and that really launched me into my career as well as a full-time employee. So so Brian was a major influence in that way. And then, as you've mentioned, I did make a transition from sort of a technical career path and a technical sales to a full sales and then sort of sales
Yes.
leadership type of role. And again, at IBM at the time, John Donaldson was the executive running the WebSphere brand for Canada. He's the one who offered me the opportunity to move from technical sales into the sales leadership role for e-commerce across Canada, which was a very successful role for me as well. So he saw something in me that maybe I didn't even know I had, and brought me into a sales career that again has been quite successful. Most recently, I would say, and as you know, I've been blogging quite a lot lately over the last couple of years on various topics in quantum and AI and related things. And in my last job at the consulting firm, I was working with an editor, and I still work with him now on some of the blogs that I put out. So he's still helping me. Mark Pritchard has been a great editor and helping me find my voice as a writer and find my way of expressing myself in a way that I hope resonates with the people who read my work, and just makes my writing better and more interesting when I'm able to publish it. So, those people off the top of my head have been great influences in me and have made a difference in my career in various different ways.
Okay, so thank you so much, Fete, for joining us in this episode and for talking about the running, the marathon, as well as your sales leadership role. It's very inspiring journey, really, and I'm pretty much sure those who know your work through your blogs, they are happy to hear more about your journey, like how everything got started. So thank you once again for joining this episode and for sharing your expertise with us.
Well, thank you very much. My pleasure to have been here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.